Everyone. Today's video is titled Creative Ways to Boost NOI on Multifamily Apartment Buildings. So these are going to be some of them are going to be more creative than others, but what we're looking at are often overlooked ways that you can increase the income and reduce expenses of a multifamily apartment building, which is great for cash flow. The more cash flow you can get, the better. But ultimately, it's about increasing the value of the building overall. When you go to sell or refinance, that NOI is going to be higher and the value you're going to get is going to be higher as well. Now, if you remember a few videos ago, I showed a chart of average cap rates across the United States. And cap rates used to be around 9-10% average around the early 2000s. And nowadays, the average is around 5%. So that's not great for cash flow purposes, but what it is good for is appreciation purposes. So back when cap rates were average 10%, every dollar you would increase the net operating income of a property, you would get $10 in return once you actually went to sell or refinance the building. With a 5% cap rate, your return is actually $20 for every dollar you're able to increase the NOI. Now, a lot of these creative ways, they're not going to move the needle of NOI on its own, but if you do a lot of these things together, they could make a pretty significant difference, especially on the end value of your multifamily apartment building. So let's dive into the list. First one, vending machines. Very easy one to do. Obviously, you need a critical mass of units to make sense of this. If you have a 6 unit, maybe a vending machine doesn't make too much sense. But if you have 50 units, 7,500 units, you put a vending machine up front. You have waters, sodas, um, you know, other goods in it. Then this can be some added income to the property. And there's a couple of ways you can go about installing a vending machine. You could start from scratch, go acquire your own vending machine. You'd need to have some system in place to keep it filled, restocked. Or there are vending machine companies out there where they'll lease you a vending machine to use, and they'll keep it restocked, and you pay a monthly fee to them. And the third option is that the vending machine company takes care of everything, and they end up just splitting the profits with you. So there's a number of ways to go about it without taking up too much added time of your property management or having too much cash outlay at the start. But say you get to a point where you're even producing $100 extra profit per week, over the course of the year, that equates to around $5,200. Now, if we're looking at a 5 cap property, that $5,200 ends up being an extra 100K in value at the end when you go to sell or refinance the property. So again, might not move the needle if it's a 7-8 figure property, but you do a lot of these things in conjunction with each other and it will make a noticeable difference. Next one, advertising space. So it's not just exterior, but we can talk about that a little bit. You may have unused space on your exterior, which could act as a billboard. Of course, it comes down to your local municipality regulations, but that's a great income source, especially if you're on a busy street in an urban environment. But even if you're not, interior advertising space, you can have a simple pin-up board by the entrance and exit where everyone goes in and out. And you can just have local businesses. You can approach them and say, "Hey, I'll give you this rate. Do you want to advertise on the pin-up board in my building?" And obviously, the larger the building, the more exposure they can get, and the more you can potentially charge. And it can be local businesses, it can be vendors, it could be a Chinese restaurant, it could be an insurance agency. It's a very easy thing to do, and it's added income that is potentially left on the table by a lot of operators. Next one, rent payment with credit card fee. So again, a lot of these tips may not be applicable depending on your type of building or where you're located. But if you give the option for a tenant to pay by credit card, could make things easier for them. Credit card companies will usually charge the vendor a transaction fee. It might be like 3%. Now you can give the option to a tenant to pay by credit card, and then you just charge them an additional fee on top of that. So it could be a total of 3.5% you charge for paying rent by credit card. A lot of people maybe may not do that and may just prefer the method of paying by check or ACH. But it gives extra optionality to a tenant, and some people have other incentives for using credit card, maybe racking up points, miles, whatever it may be, and they might not care about the extra percentage fee. But it's something very easy that you can implement. And, if people do use that service, you make a little bit extra on the top of it. Assigned parking spaces. So again, it depends what your situation is, but if you have an open parking lot, maybe you are charging for parking, maybe you're not. But you can actually rent out spaces that are very close to the entrance and exit, which may be more desirable, and you can call them designated spots for people to park their cars versus just free for all. No, you just park wherever you like. So this is one that I think is pretty creative, and a lot of people don't necessarily take advantage of, but having a closer parking spot to the entrance is a big advantage, especially if it's a bad weather market, in the winters, it's a lot of snow, cold. You want to minimize that time from your car to the inside of the building. So assign parking spaces, see what the demand is. Maybe people don't care where they park. Maybe it matters a lot, and you can actually have some dynamic pricing associated with it. Amenities reservations. So, usually a lot of amenities will be included in rent, so we're not going to go and charge for every amenity to be used. But reservations, again, can bump people to the front of the line. For instance, you have a basketball court and it's first come, first serve. But if someone wants to use it on a particular time and day, they can pay a fee and have it completely reserved for their use. And that applies to conference rooms, party rooms, any other real amenity that your building may offer. Having that reservation, can bring in a couple of bucks. And it adds value to the tenants as well. They know that they have the option to reserve it if they want. They just have to pay a fee. Speaking of fees, we got pet fees. This has become a lot more common in the past 10 or so years. It started off as a bit of a one-off fee at the start of the lease term. It might have been 400 or 500 bucks to have a pet, especially if weight was considered. Now I'm starting to see a lot more of pet rent. So they're charging anywhere from $50 to $200, depending on the type of pet and the size. And this is extra income for landlords, and it seems like tenants are willing to pay for it for the right building. And so having that extra recurring monthly income is potentially huge. Move-in fees, again, one that's become more common. It used to just be, a month or a month and a half security deposit, but a lot of landlords have turned to saying, hey, we don't want to hold a month or a month and a half of security deposit, which we end up usually having to give back to the tenant. Instead, we would rather charge a, one-time fee of, call it $450, $500. It covers any, move-in incidental damage, and it really allows you to collect that money and put it towards NOI. Now, if you have a 6-unit building, again, you might not you might get move-in fees pretty sporadically, especially if you have long-term tenants. So it wouldn't be appropriate to include that in NOI. But I would argue for, say, a 100 or 150 unit building, you're going to have constant turnover. It might be a little turnover, it might be a lot of turnover, but you're going to get consistent turnover. And so you're going to get consistent move-in fees if you decide to forego security deposit and instead have this one-off non-refundable move-in fee. So that's become a lot more common, and that doesn't mean you can't chase after expenses if the tenant has abused the property. You can still chase them for it. You just won't have the luxury of having a security deposit in place to hold them hostage over. Laundry credit card payment. So I hope if you do have laundry machines, you are charging for them. A lot of, especially older buildings, they're coin operated. It's 2024 now. There shouldn't be, we shouldn't be reliant on coins to use this service. And if you think about it from a tenant's perspective, it is very antiquated and it adds an extra layer of complexity, which, may be to the detriment of the building and the landlord. So, for instance, if they don't have quarters, now they have to suddenly go make a trip to the bank to get a roll of quarters. Maybe they say, hey, it's, easier just for me to go to the laundromat, which takes credit cards, so I'm going to do my laundry there. Credit card just makes everything so much easier. We're in a much more of a cashless society these days. People can go whenever they want. They don't have to worry about putting together quarters in order to do their laundry. And if you really wanted to get creative, you could even fluctuate the pricing, which is a lot easier with credit card. And you can have surcharge pricing, say, hey, the machines are all used on Sunday night because that's when everyone wants to do their laundry. Maybe to help out and reduce the load on Sunday nights, you charge a surcharge, and maybe you make it cheaper during the day, during the week. And, it's not necessary, but it's an interesting way that you can take advantage of credit card payments on laundry services. Storage rental, again, similar philosophy as the assigned parking spaces. May have storage included or not included with the tenant's lease, but look, a lot of people are spending money on long-term storage units that are often miles away. They have to drive to. There's nothing going to be more convenient than a storage space that is in their unit or in the building where they live. And again, it could be added income that you're not necessarily taking advantage of. So storage rental units, the position of it, the size of it, if they are included, do you have additional space which could otherwise be rented out to tenants who do need more storage? Internet cable packages. So especially again, a larger building probably makes more sense for this specific item, but you can approach the local service provider of internet and cable, and you can say, hey, I'm gonna push my tenants to use your service if you can give me some sort of wholesale discount. And then you can turn around and you can take some of that value for yourself and then pass some of that value onto the tenants as well. They're free to go find their own internet and cable packages, but you can provide that for them and also increase some NOI off of that. Solar panels. Now, this one, obviously, there's an upfront expense with solar panels, but if you live in a relatively sunny area around the Sun Belt, it could make sense to install solar panels on your building. It can help pay for, a lot of the common area maintenance expenses, the electricity. This is one that actually is looking to reduce expenses. The previous ones were more about increasing revenue. So don't forget that we have two ways that we can boost NOI. It's increasing income, but also reducing expenses. So you've got to do the math on that one to see if it makes sense for your building. But solar panels will reduce the expenses and increase the NOI of a building. Replacing grass with artificial turf. if you have a lot of grass on your property, that is an ongoing expense to maintain it. You got landscapers you got to pay for. You got water costs, especially if you're in a sunny part of the country. Keeping it green and lush is important for curb appeal. You could be spending a lot of money on it. Artificial turf looks clean. It's almost no maintenance. The downside is you do have an upfront cost like the solar panels. But if you can overcome that, then converting to artificial turf could be a huge NOI saver. And the last one I have is installing smart thermostats. So these have been around for a few years now, and they learn the habits of the user, and they try and be as energy efficient as possible. So they'll turn off when need be, and they'll keep on in the most efficient way. So again, these are things that you can do to reduce expenses, especially if you are paying for heating and electricity in the building. And yeah, that's the last one we have. So again, none of these individually are going to move the needle in any significant way, but you can start to see that if you start applying three, four, five, six, or more of these things, it can definitely start making a dent in your expenses and ultimately boosting your NOI and ultimately increasing the value of the property by 20x if you have a 5 cap building. So that's all we have. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.